Hey everybody, welcome back. I am your host, Joe JDF Foster, and today I'm going to discuss two movies I found on Tubi that were listed under the Lady Belladonna series. The first is Lady Belladonna's Nightshades. The second, Lady Belladonna's Tales of Inferno. Now, before I proceed any further, I'm just here to let you know, feel free to check out any of my previous videos that I've done or made in the case of the animated and music videos type deals on here, or just let me know about ones you'd like to see me make for upcoming ones. In the case of these type of videos right here, especially since they've gotten so strict on, oh, you can't use this because it's copyrighted suddenly, and that I'll cover in another video at some point. But anyways, back to the videos at hand. The first one is Lady Belladonna's Nightshade. Or Nightshades, I'm sorry, I forget if there's an S on that or not. Anyways, the main character in this series is Lady Belladonna, as the thing states, which is another Elvira knockoff character that people have made, only even more sexualized. And she's got a little buddy named Addie, and if you see him, you'll get why she calls him Addie. And but the deal with both these movies is that, with this movie, is that it's an anthology, where the idea is she opens the stories and each story focuses on mortal sin, of which Lady Belladonna claims to love. But between each story and at the beginning and concluding of the film is a segment called The Abyss, where it's like an interlude. Um, with the first one, she comments more on her career as being the deal broker, and about how she is waiting for Keith Richards' contract to come to an end, because while she enjoyed making that deal, it seems it's lasted longer than she thought by the looks of. By the way she comments on it. There's also references to Pandora in it, and at one point, like I said, it shows her servant or pet, as she's calling it, named Addie, who is sent to punish skinheads, which is kind of fun. To punish skinheads, which is funny when you think about it to some extent, based on the idealism. But one good, but I did enjoy the interludes being in between each segment, because it's kind of like when you go for these big meals and you have like the little pieces in between where you have that little moment to cleanse and feel free and get a new taste. Get your body ready for the new taste of what's coming next. Also, there's a reference in it made about a pope who supposedly made a deal in order to become pope. The first actual story in this is called The Last Night on Mars. It shows articles dealing with murders, some of different types. There's a fridge scene early on in the movie, in the story. Makes me think of the original Ghostbusters scene, where it shows the dog, when it shows Sigourney Weaver's character opening the fridge to find the dog there. And it goes, and it like barks or says Zool. Only in this one, it's got a guy who's screaming the house owner's name. The guy's face, though, in the fridge actually reminded me of a Marilyn Manson wannabe, or the people that were into the rock genre at that point, into that style of music. I mean, I liked Manson, but not enough to take on the look that he had. The story had a good flow, though certain things in it became expected faster than it should have. The second story is called Perfect, and this one is a suburban horror story. I mean, it takes place in the suburbs. Not really all that traditional for a horror style story. At the beginning of the story, it mocks the 21st century conventions such as electricity and light bulbs, but it also pokes fun at the 1950s lifestyle. And this one, I particularly love how it went from a comedy to a horror. I mean, it went from a horror to a comedy film in the way it was done. Because this one started out seeming like it was going to be a comedy anyways, but it had the element of horror in it. And then next on the list is what's known as Wake Up Call. Starts out like a normal story. Guy checks into a motel, calls the front desk to give him a wake up call. The story shows what happens, though, when you cross the lines you shouldn't, even if it's just the room next door. Or it shows also how that thin wall can be annoying to anybody. And the final story in this is called Wolf's Law. The story appears to be about bullying and how it leads to dangerous outcomes. And references to September 11th, 2001 attacks on the Twin Towers and the Pentagon are mentioned in the film as a memorial where it's remembering them. And then we come back. Like I said, the film starts in the abyss as the title, and it ends with the area known as the abyss. And it does it fairly well. And the first one, this one known as Nightshade or Nightshades, but it's Lady Belladonna's Nightshade or Lady Belladonna's Nightshades, came out in 2016. Now, this next one, the second film, came out in 2018. Lady Belladonna's Tales from the Inferno. And just like the first one, it was an anthology where it started out with Lady Belladonna, and each moment in between, she was, in between each story, there were segments dealing with her, and then she was the final segment as well. However, unlike the first one, where it talks about her being this great broker, there's a director that's come down to where she does her work and is convincing her, is trying to convince her to do this film. And eventually does, only it doesn't go exactly as she thought it would. But again, but now the stories again focus on the idea of mortal sins. The credits in this at the opening are slightly different, as they didn't list the stories in the anthology like they did in the previous one. Um, but also, during the segments where it's dealing with the filmmaker and everything, I enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. Yeah, that's going to hit you. Enjoyed how they made fun of critics and the weird idea of films in itself. And also, they made fun of Lady Belladonna's movie company, stating that the idea was, for a tagline, movies so awful, movies so bad, they're god awful, as the way it was making fun of the production company itself. Now, the first actual story in this is called Family Tradition. It deals with the legacy of families. It shows how some things aren't what they seem. And I liked how in this one, when it went into the legacy of the family, it explained the legacy without going into really deep detail. It was like, this is what happened, and it's been continued since. Now, the next story is called The Seven Doors. This one became way too easy to figure out what was going on when it happened. Um, Two guys see a girl when it first starts out in a building. The girl's walking up to the building, and they argue whether she will open all seven doors or not. Well, when I initially thought of this, I'll admit my initial idea, yeah, it was wrong. But then as the story progressed with what it was discussing, I figured out what it was by the second or third one because of how it phrased it about what the door represented. Ugh, okay. Now, the story that followed Seven Doors is called Exit Strategy. Man goes into this shop looking to heck to put a hex or a curse on somebody. Well, the person he talks to in there is the stereotype of the voodoo or Louisiana magic man. The story in itself was good, but it could have been longer to me to tell more of a story or been made into a better story because it seemed just like it was, bam, okay, we're done. Okay, and now for the story that followed that, which would be fifth on the list, but fourth in terms of story, is called Light Signs. I like the comical look of the lovers about when they, because it shows at first, begins, the husband's talking to his wife on the phone. Well, while they're talking on the phone, the wife tells him she's making the cake for his birthday. And he's actually got this look on his face of surprise, like she's cooking him this cake. And it's not that look that most men would want to give their wives of, woohoo! No, this is that look that you get in some places where it's, oh dear Lord, how do I get out of this? And he talks about how he wants a clean kitchen. And when she tells him it's a red velvet, he talks about how hard the recipe is, things like that, and how he'll be home soon. Well, after it gets past that initial stage, the story becomes more about a conspiracy theory dealing with aliens as the plot. And, or at least it seems like a plot, like it's aliens. It might be something else. But it is definitely a conspiracy theory story. Okay, and the final story is the Inferno. The character on this, it's even admitted before it goes into it, is based on the character of Dante from Dante's Inferno. And all they really did was basically take Dante's Inferno and updated it to the present. Well, what most people don't know is that Dante's Inferno is actually part of a trilogy. The Inferno is only the first part. There's the Inferno, there's Purgatory, and then there's Heaven. And again, this movie, all it really did was take the first part, put a modern take on the story. But something that made it interesting was the master in it, or what was the devil or Lucifer. In the original, instead of giving it 3 heads in the final circle and freezing, the thing seemed to have more of a DID or schizophrenic personality going, where it was like it had other voices that would speak or other thoughts, and it would react. But it would also react with itself in that way, which is why I leaned more towards DID than schizophrenic. Now, between her and between Beatrice, Dante's lover who died, and the master, they make a bet. Well, the wager is between Dante and Beatrice's soul. The idea is whose soul gets to leave. And it's based on the idea if Dante wins this contest, which requires him to go through 8 doors, each with a different temptation that was specific to him. If he can make it through all 8 and be out the door by sunrise, then he gets to go free while Beatrice stayed. But if he got stopped at any of them, then Beatrice was staying for eternity. I mean, not Beatrice, but he was staying for eternity. So it actually made me wonder on that one, on which way it worked, on how that deal worked. Because personally, I think with the way Beatrice did her deal with the master, that it actually came out more that she was willing to self-sacrifice, which, according to some ideas of religion, should have actually freed her soul from the torture that it was destined to face, because she in fact made a selfless act in order to give Dante a chance. Now, I know it's not written in text formally, but it's often said of the text that this is what's done. And it's often portrayed for those. So, anyways, and then it comes back to the final where they deal with, then it comes back to our epilogue dealing with Lady Belladonna and the director. And the deal that the director had made for her was that she was going to be the star of the movie in a movie about her life. Well, then she finds out that the director has recast her part because she refused to show gratuitous nudity and he wanted to do sex sells mentality. So instead, she shows him how she deals with things and how things work when you're the top contract dealer. But, anyways, I recommend both these films for watching, even if you're just looking for something to kill time. These are both good for it. And, like I said, until next time, I will see you all, and feel free to leave a message about what you think I should do for the upcoming video.